Hi, I'm Jenny Crooks-Johnson. I'm a children's author, and I was lucky enough to research and write these 3 books for Mitchell Lane's Space Force series. The United States Space Force has an out-of-this-world job. There are more than 10,000 satellites that orbit Earth, and these satellites are important for our everyday life and our military defense. And there are many threats to satellites. There are foreign adversaries that are trying to disrupt our satellites. There is orbital space debris, aka space trash, with no space garbage truck to pick it up. There are even sunstorms. It's crazy out there. Today I'm just outside of Buckley Space Force Base in Colorado. See those golf ball looking things, giant golf ball looking things behind me? Those are called radomes. And they help Buckley with one of its main missions, which is to provide missile defense warning for the United States and its allies, detecting missiles around the world. How do they do it? Giant antennas inside of those radomes communicate with satellites that are clear up in Earth's highest orbit, which is called GEO. It's 36,000 kilometers or 22,300 miles away. Those satellites are high enough up that they can scan the entire Earth for the kind of infrared energy that missiles and other military weapons create. You can learn actually more about those satellites and their technology in this book. Those satellites are important enough that they are carefully defended. If the United States ever has to go to a war in space, it will be the Delta IX Stormbringers who help fight that battle. Which will be a very unique battle because of the unique properties of space. You can learn more about that in this book. Speaking of satellites, today I am at the Space Foundation Discovery Center in Colorado Springs. I'm super grateful that they are letting me film here. And I am with some really neat replicas of satellites. We've got the Intelsat 5 replica back here. We've got some GPS satellites and some other satellites. But speaking of GPS satellites, did you know that the Space Force owns, runs, and protects GPS satellites? They even let everyday people like me use them. For example, the Maps app on the smartphone used GPS satellites to help me navigate my way here. And GPS satellites were helping the traffic lights that made sure I got here safely. GPS satellites also helped me with my banking that I did earlier this week. So they're a super big part of our everyday life. That's not the biggest reason that the Space Force owns, runs, and protects GPS satellites. The biggest reason is that military equipment use GPS satellites. For example, if you've ever wondered how military drones navigate, they heavily rely on GPS to do that. And what about smart bombs and missiles? Same thing. They heavily rely on GPS to do their job. And what about the tanks and ships, military tanks and ships that have to navigate in storms or in unknown territory? They too rely heavily on GPS to do their job. The Space Force protects other satellites as well. They protect spy satellites. They protect the satellites we were talking about earlier at Buckley that are the missile warning system satellites looking for infrared energy from weapons. But no matter what the satellite is, all satellites have some basic parts. And in this book, on page 17, show this. Okay, so all satellites are going to have some kind of power source. That is going to either be batteries, or very often it's including solar panels, because out in outer space does not have the atmosphere that we have here on Earth. And so the sun is very intense, and solar energy is very valuable. So you can see the solar panels on many of these satellites. They also will have some kind of control system to help them if they have to make corrections in their orbit. And then they're going to include some kind of payload. For GPS satellites, that payload is going to include atomic clocks. And these kind of clocks are much more accurate, say, than the kind of clocks that I have in my house or wear on my wrist. Those ones run on batteries. But these kind of atomic clocks use the frequency of tiny particles of matter called atoms, such as a cesium atom, to keep exact time. And that exact time is essential for GPS to work. And then they will, of course, have antennas to give and receive signals. And that's another, of course, important part of satellites. Satellites are super important to our everyday life and to military defense. So if you happen to come across a Space Force Guardian, be sure to tell them thank you.